so they do have an opportunity to make a better choice. It's all that. It's not criticisms. What the world is doing, it's choice. And so what is being presented here is a real opportunity, and people make the choice. But again, most people, what they have created as their lifestyle and routines here, which is fine. It's a choice again. Many times thinking that what is being presented here is along the same lines. It's not. This is where you really start to recognize your real awareness as opposed from the personal self. We don't negate anything. It's not about that. It's about recognizing what's taking place. And again, as the world is doing what it is, everybody's deciding what they're doing. The world becomes as it has, all poisoned and polluted. Does this make sense? We're living in a radical distortion, even though most people think, oh, it's all okay. I have a 9-to-5 job, got a house, a car, and I've got good income. This is all a distortion that we, because so many people agree to it on this planet, we're part of it too. What I'm presenting here is something more so than most people can comprehend. I see it as a pure sincerity, but each individual has to recognize this for what it is. And at the same time, what I do is I use the words and ideas to relate to this literally indoctrinated world. This has all been purposely done. As you look through history and, some of the people that were trying to figure out, nature, life itself, they didn't create what has been created here in the last several hundred years, especially in what we call the United States or what have you. We'll just use that as an example. So again, we have to deal with it, but how we each make choices is up to us, how we contribute. But my focus is like the sun shining, is pure sincerity. And it's not going to, very few people are going to really recognize this with the personal self, because they're going to bring their personal ideas into it as opposed to really learning what is being presented here, because it's just a whole lot better than you can even decide for yourself. Now, the real guides are making this known to the world. The world can know it. But there's a difference between knowing it and doing something about it, stepping up and deciding to create a real benefit as opposed to what is taking place now. So again, it's all choice every moment. You decide what you will recognize. But this is what I base everything off of, is pure sincerity, and more so than that.
First thing I want to say is about this question of taplining. Yeah, the fact that I personally found the new presentation, and others too, after being in the corporation for so long and presumably badly taplined. Does this not attest to the fact that Harold and Johnny's taplining is just make-believe? So how do you explain that people can just, in a flash, forget the past and not be held down by it and turn a new page? So don't you think that even the new presentation, let me put it in quotes, taplining is even more effective than what Johnny thought she was doing, or what they think they are doing? If taplining is anything to go by, I think the fact that people are glued to the no presentation, after ungluing themselves from the corporation in which they have been for so long. So what do you say about this, John?
The question is about taplining, and this is a biggie, and this is something that, again, each person decides for themselves to look at or pretend it doesn't exist. That's like pretending the pollution in the world, the chemtrails, the HAARP, etc., which we harp a lot about. doesn't exist. You want to keep pretending that? Every day I get up here, I see that, I'm waking up into this distortionally decided world. I'm not deciding it, but others are. There are many ways to do things, and the tap lining is a specific reference. In other words, I've created this category, and it's interesting that, others haven't really picked it up. Maybe they have, and I haven't seen it. Again, are they avoiding it? Just like, you talk about the corporation, Joni and Harold's Corporation. It's 100% business. That's it. And that's their choice. I don't see any benefit there. The benefit I do see with them is to recognize what has no benefit. Okay. So again, it's like what Monsanto produces. You eventually recognize that it doesn't matter what you think, it has no benefit because it's really not needed. But we have to deal with it because it's here and people are making choices. So this is how the earth is. So I see the challenge of recognizing these things, and tap lining is exactly what it is. It's agreement, and what people do is they start their routines. We all come into this life, and we start deciding things, but it's not on a conscious level. This is supposedly the idea of consciousness, but actually with what people have done with that is that they're not utilizing that idea to its full potential. In other words, it's come to where the idea of consciousness is some kind of ultimate or absolute. And so again, it's just like everybody's blowing up a big bubble, and it's like, oh, the consciousness is getting better. We're going to become more spiritual, and all these ideas that they add to it. And so at some point, we start to decide to recognize what's really taking place instead of just pretending with the routines that we have created. That's a choice. And so this is really, just like Paul said, it's really, he called it a spiritual psychology. It is really along the lines of recognizing the literalism that has been created and people have agreed to and indoctrinated themselves with. It's like everybody's giving themselves their own vaccines and wondering what's wrong with them. And at the same time, not being interested with what's going on with them. That's a choice too. See, it's all these little choices because the whole of life is endless. And if you want a better position, you can decide it. But the tap lining is a huge effect here because you see the process of agreement that has been taking place. And we'll just, again, I'll use the United States because it's a very good example. I don't need to use the whole world because it's always been there. But just the creation of the United States and the agreement here and how it was forged. It was forged on an agenda, a corrupt, distorted agenda that was made to look good. And yes, there were good people involved. I'm not saying that. And it's not about being good, all right? That's cute, but that still isn't it. It has nothing to do with recognizing the is. So, again, people have decided these absolutes, and by the very fact that they have all these things, happiness, thrills, good, bad, etc., they have actually agreed, and they create their own tap linings, just like you plug your computer into the wall, just like you, the cable guy comes up and it comes out and hooks up your cable. You can say that that's a tap line. Well, that's a tap line you've agreed to. Now, what happens, too, with these tap lines, of course, we get used to our computer, and when it's down, we get discouraged because we become very attached, and even emotionally to our computer, to where we get very upset when it isn't properly working, just like a marriage between two people. When it isn't working, okay, sometimes we throw things across the house, or we have discussions that even the neighbors can hear. And so this is what we go through with the personal self, and these tap lines. All right. Again, as long as the individual has them, I'll say just to a certain extent, it's hard to get rid of all of them because we have to agree to something here, whether if you like or dislike your shoes. So you got a tap line to your shoes. Okay. Well, no big deal. Okay. but it's the agreement and tap line to things that you really don't want to agree to. And this becomes the scary part to face for most people, and that is that, again, we'll pick on the corporation. It's not a criticism, but I can use the U.S. government. I can use anything, and that is that it's kind of like the Roach Motel, this little idea that Raid made to where the roaches go in and don't come out. And the thing is that these business ideas are set up to capture people's attention, get their agreement, and because that agreement is so, the intrusion comes, okay? The individual is taken for granted, and on the back side of the bodies, when the person isn't looking, the tap lines are placed. And anybody can see their tap lines and agreements. And, you know, a lot of people are in agreement to what is affecting them and will eventually ruin their bodies and their experience here, if that's what they want. Everyone came here or is anywhere for one reason, that is to eventually recognize the isness life is. And so, fortunately, it is this time where I recognize this to present this to everyone, more so than any spiritual path or sound good ideas. But again, you got to see more than the surface. You have to experiment with it. And I know a lot of people, there are people that are frustrated because they do the new you, they want to meet Rebus Zartars, they have all these other things, etc. They want confirmation. I understand. And so I suggest to go in baby steps. And this is why we create the Skype groups. So people share, okay, share their ideas. They get ideas. And like you come here and you ask the questions, Charles. And the tap lining is very important because, again, it is a challenge. I see these things as a challenge to waking up. That's the first step, is to wake up. It's like when you get out of bed in the morning, okay? It's a challenge just to get up sometimes because you're really tired. It's been a hard week. It's been a hard month. It's been a hard life, etc. It's been a lot of lifetimes that you're carrying also. And to get up every day and to face the challenge. The wake up is the first part to what's going on, like with the tap lines. But then you decide, okay, it's like, okay, you know, we use this idea to people, okay, waking up, and they will say, well, I am awake. But the reality is that yes, you are awake to what is taking place here in this physical realm, but at the same time, are you recognizing why you're here and to do something about it? But that's a choice. See, I take on the challenge to present this in a particular way to see if people want to recognize why they're here. But in the meantime, yes, they're being tap-lined and subdued because those that control, those who have decided, the original invaders, the original reptilian alien tap-liners that originally invaded this planet, don't want people to wake up. I'll just keep it simplified. There's a lot more to that, but just keeping it simple. In other words, they have had an attitude for eons, and because they've had an attitude, they are trapped within themselves. They're very afraid, they're very trapped, and they don't know what to do. So what they do is they try and leech off of others, and this is where the tap lining comes in. So again, it's like a marriage. There are tap lines involved. But you decide through that agreement, you decide how that connection, or the old saying, bonding, is going to be. You decide that. That's something that you, I would say, basically you consciously agree, unless your other is doing something else, okay? And these things do happen. I mean, this is how it is in life. But then the abrasive part comes in, which we're experiencing here from all over this world, and that is that through the Wi-Fi, the HARP, the pharmaceuticals, the vaccines, just everything, okay, propaganda, advertising, television, subliminals, anything to get you to agree, to get your attention, to be able to more and more possess you. Now it becomes possession, and this is really where the tap lines come in. It becomes a really almost an absolute possession. They want to possess you. Okay, are you in agreement to that? Are you recognizing what has taken place? You decide. I'm not going to tell you what to do, can only present it. I'm focused on the projects that I'm doing for people to better recognize why they're here. And this is, we'll just use the Vessel Project as an example. It's just an example. It's not the whole thing, it's part of it. But the real guidance and real education from the real side, in other words, from the real side is here and now. That's with your real awareness. And you decide to recognize these things or keep viewing life according to the routines that you have created. And as you do, you're mainly agreeing to the systems here, which is fine. It's okay. This is where you become conscious effect, and you take on the challenge to recognize what is affecting you, and you decide that. So this is where the tap lines come in. Again, I find it very interesting that this has been around for many years, and that who has picked up on this, because it is a real relationship. But then again, you see what the world is doing. The world here, no matter how good it sounds with all its information from the aliens to this and that, to what is taking place with the governments and the monetary system, Federal Reserve, whatever. Okay, it's all one-dimensional. That's it. One-dimensional, black and white. That's it. And if that's all you want to see, then don't take notice of what is being presented here. Most people don't, because they're chasing their one-dimensional ideas and so-called information and knowledge, and it all equals to another one-dimensional position. And realistically, all the information that they're taking in, just like David Icke and what he's presenting with the reptilians as an example, these people are being infected and set up for tap lining, which they don't realize. They're thinking they're gaining knowledge. We're trying to warn them, saying, no, it doesn't quite work like that. You know, just because you have your computer and your cell phone and you turn on your TV, yes, there is a benefit there, but at the same time, it's run on microwaves, which are mind control, with images that the personal mind, which is the personal you here in the physical, does not see, but your other four bodies are picking it up, and eventually it filters down and affects the personal self because they're all together. So yes, this is a heck of a challenge, and it only comes along once in a while, simply because the world has to be ready for it, and there has to be somebody here that can recognize it in some way. So with everything that's taking place out there, and you notice that, you know, Harold and Joni, the United States government, the Queen, and, you know, the monarchy, the Vatican, whatever, okay, they don't mention any of this. They don't want people to know. They want them to all be one-dimensional. If you want to stay one-dimensional, have fun. This is the world of fun and thrills until it's not, because what is being decided here is a huge demise, and Miss Kelsey and others are relating that fact also. But our focus is something awesome, and again, I go off of pure sincerity. That's what I base everything on. I am very sincere and very real with what I'm doing, and mainly misunderstood, and that's fine. I'm fine with that too. I'm fine with everything. I really am, because again, each person makes choices, and we're not here to change the world. We cannot save anybody. That's the God idea. If you want to go along with that, have fun. I would read the latest group that I wrote, Gods and Saviors, or All Is. That's part of it. There's a lot more. This information is available to you, this knowledge, these hints, this references, so that you can decide to do better. And as you do decide to do better, and as you step up sincerely with the All Is and learn to recognize what it is, and the real guides, you start there, they're the intermediates, these tap lines and these agreements will start to diminish on their own, and the boys will take care of them. And so it's according to you and your sincerity and recognizing your intent. This is where you come in. So if you have some other agenda within yourself, it's already seen. Life sees it, the bigger picture. Maybe your neighbors or your wife or your daughter, your kids, or your, you know, your business partners won't see it, but life itself and the real guides do. So you're going to have your experiences accordingly. So take a look at your intent. Learn to recognize what that is, because that's the real you. And then you apply the realities that life already is. Again, I love pure sincerity. That's one of them, and gratitude. And just like the sun shining, I see that as just that pure sincerity, simply because it doesn't stop shining. And it doesn't bother anybody, and it shines upon all. So when it comes to tap lines, when you stand 100% real, what the all is, you won't have any tap lines. That's what's so cool about it. But in the meantime, you deal with the challenge of yourself and what you have created. So yes, the world is totally tap line, just like the circuit boards in a computer, all that stuff that's moving here and there. They want you to be locked and trapped into a cyberspace. This is where virtual reality comes in. And they create endless cyberspaces and virtual realities in creation because through the endlessness life is, creation can go on forever. And you decide to recognize the difference between what is real and creation itself. So because things are what they are right now, this very moment, not what they were or could be, okay? Those are really, in a way, a fallacy, but they do exist as references. And most of the world is chasing the want-to-be idea. Well, again, until you recognize the nowness life is, you're going to deal with these tap lines.
About government. Government has been constituted. Government has constituted authority. The idea being that it is the authority of the people by the people. Do you think the idea of government is a human advancement and the world will be better off with or without governments?
Yes, Charles, government. Okay, that's very interesting. I always have fun with these things. And so again, yes, it's all choice. And I'll give some views here, and that is that the ploy has been that it's of the people, for the people, by the people. Okay, it's just very cleverly written, isn't it? Well, maybe it started off with that. I get it. Okay, we all start off with something. It's kind of like a road trip. We all have the intention of let's go have fun and discover the adventure and go on and on. But as the road trip goes on, just like in the movie, all of a sudden, all kinds of funny things happen that the individuals are thinking, well, gee, I didn't think that, or I didn't want this, or we didn't want to do that. We wanted to have fun, but what is the definition of that? In other words, anything can happen, and it does. And so, yes, does government have its place or not? Yes, it does, in a way. In other words, it's more than obvious that I would say the majority of people on the planet really don't know what to do with themselves. They really don't. They don't know why they're here. They fumble around. So they actually really do need someone to tell them what to do, okay, and direct them, even put them in boxes and cages at times because of, they get too rowdy, weird, or whatever, and this is why we have prisons, all right? So, again, government has its place because it's already here, so it's not about getting rid of it. But then on the other hand, you look at the birds and animals, which I've said many times. Do they need government? Do they need to be governed? No, because for the most part, yes, there are little disturbances in nature, but it's figured out in its own way. But for the most part, no, they don't need to be told what to do. A bird doesn't need to be told where to fly. Do they need to consult the FAA, and the control tower, etc.? No, and things do happen. Yes, they do get caught up in the planes and whatever, but if the planes weren't there, they wouldn't be caught up in the planes. And if HARP wasn't there, they wouldn't be dropping from the sky dead either. So again, and that's all entails the government, doesn't it? So we have the two sides, but government tries to portray itself as the good guy and that it is needed. You see, they again, the world controllers create these ideas. They create the ideas of need, that you need something. Realistically, you don't, but until people wake up, again, like when we're raised with our parents, we need our parents. That's very, very real. We need our parents to help raise us. Or, if they if they put us in the forest, then we're raised by wolves. There's been movies on this which are interesting. So again, polar bears, wolves, whatever. So is government needed? I'm not going to say this or that simply because I just gave the idea. It's choice. And today we see how people rally to these different ideas. In other words, through all these lifetimes of being suppressed, controlled, tortured, intimidated, and destroyed, okay, they're still rallying to the same people that have always controlled them. Again, it's really kind of funny, isn't it? And so our position here is to provide something real, but then again, it's a choice. And so as we go along, and those that step in 100% with their intent and their sincerity with this, they will see what's taking place, but it's only a few at a time because it is a huge journey. It is such a huge, awesome journey, and there's no end to it, to where what we have here with the governments and the people that are agreeing to them, it's an encasement. It's not things are getting better. Yes, people have better sofas and shirts and underwear, etc. Oh, yeah, these things are better than weaving them yourselves. But at the same time, look at the world and what all that entails. Are you agreeing to that too? So really, it's about your real awareness. This is where it gets to. So you want to agree with government, or do you want to recognize your real awareness and go from there? So again, what we're presenting is not a government, is not that with the Mexico and the New Mexico position, etc., and the all-solar vessel, etc. We're creating demonstrations here, and the real universal position that has to be recognized. It's not a place in life; it's a recognition, etc. So government is choice. You see people doing it, and the idea of voting too. Driving your car on the road. They're telling you it's a privilege when you're part of the populace that built the roads, that did all this. They didn't do it. They just pointed their finger. They created the monetary system to pay people off so that they're fine, but it's you, and then they tell you it's a privilege. See, everything is distorted and backwards, and so again, it's a choice. And do we need it or not? Again, it's a choice. I see that I have to deal with it, okay, for what it is. And I don't pretend what it is or what it isn't. It is exactly what it is. It's a mechanism of control, and I get that. I deal with it, but at the same time, I'm taking on the challenge to present something that's a real benefit. And of course, they don't want it because they want to control. And so this is where we're going into, again, the 5G and the 6G and whatever, till the control is so absolute, you will not be able to consider anything in your personal self. That's exactly where they want everybody. So get ready. So in the meantime, this is what I'm doing to, present this to offset that. But, many people, they want to vote. They want to go do that stuff. Fine, go do it. And every time you do, it's a tap line of agreement. You decide. So it's not about good or bad or right or wrong. It's about choice. So again, do the birds need government? We can do a lot better, but this is where, too, the individual has to decide to wake up and be able to handle themselves completely and not interfere with others. So this is where government does come in. This is where we have the military and the police force and whatever, because there's a lot of people that, they're still chasing their thrills and their ideas of where they're at here, and they're rather out of control. So the government and the enforcers have fun with this because it's like their big video game that they play with, and they like protesters. They're saying that, oh, don't break the law, but they love people to break the law because then they can control them. See? It's a catch situation here, and you decide to recognize it or not. You want to play the game, or you want to do better.